June 5, 2025. Two U.S. B-2 Spirits slipped through a layer of cobalt sky over the South China Sea. Hundreds of miles below, a Chinese HQ-19 anti-ballistic missile base sits hidden among rolling hills, its radars scanning the horizon. Moments earlier, a Chinese HQ-19 missile hurtled toward a U.S. stealth bomber. The missile missed its mark, but it triggered something far larger, a response that would demolish the launch site in less than 90 seconds. Who fired first, and why did it go so wrong? How did two stealth bombers coordinate an attack that erased an entire missile base in under 2 minutes? Stay with me, because this isn't just a story of bombs and rockets. It's a lesson in deterrence, precision, and the global balance of power. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button now. You won't want to miss what happens next. The USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group cruised 180 nautical miles east of Taiwan's southern tip. The sea was a sheet of dark glass. On board, sailors were completing overnight maintenance. They had no reason to suspect a direct attack. Yet on the B-2 Spirit Nightfall 1, cruising at 50,000 ft, a faint chirp from the warning receiver cut through the cockpit's hum. The display flashed. Enemy radar lock detected. A Chinese HQ-19 anti-ballistic missile battery had just painted the bomber. Within seconds, a missile streaked skyward, leaving a bright tail arcing across pre-dawn darkness. It was a bold move, a Chinese attempt to blind or bring down an American stealth aircraft. Inside the cockpit, the pilot took a deep breath. Training kicked in. Nightfall 1 to command, we have a launch. Evasive maneuvers. He banked sharply, using the B-2's stealth design to reduce cross-section, while electronic countermeasures pulsed deception signals toward the incoming threat. The HQ-19 missile closed the distance at Mach 5, roaring through thin air. At the last second, it adjusted its course, but it was too late. It flew past the B-2, unable to detect its signature, and disintegrated miles above the sea China had fired and missed. But this was no small misfire. It violated international norms and directly threatened a U.S. strategic bomber. Washington had to respond, not just to defend the aircraft, but to deter future strikes. On board the USS Ronald Reagan, alarms blared. The command center lit up with red indicators. HQ-19 launch! HQ-19 launch! Officers sprinted to their consoles. Reports from satellite feeds confirmed the trajectory. It had come from an HQ-19 battery deep inside China's Fujian province. Rear Admiral James Foster, commanding the strike group, knew the significance. This was a deliberate escalation. Washington's standing orders were clear. Any direct attack on U.S. strategic assets warranted an immediate proportional response. But how to strike back without sparking a wider war? The answer lay with two of America's most secretive assets, the B-2 Spirits. In the Operations Center of Pacific Command in Hawaii, senior military leaders convened an emergency video call with the Pentagon. Within 6 minutes, the decision was made. Operation Iron Dagger, a contingency plan for neutralizing high-value anti-ballistic missile sites, was activated. Two B-2 Spirits that had been on routine patrol were given new coordinates. Their mission? Strike the HQ-19 battery before it could fire again. In addition, a carrier-launched E-2D Hawkeye surveillance plane would coordinate battle management, ensuring the bombers could slip in and out undetected. The B-2 Spirits, call signs Nightfall 1 and Nightfall 2, peeled away from their patrol route. They dropped to 40,000 ft, then 35,000 ft, using the Earth's curvature to remain below radar detection. Each aircraft carried two GBU-57AB Massive Ordnance Penetrator (MOP) bombs, a 13-ton weapon designed to destroy hardened bunkers, and four smaller GBU-32J dams, 1,000 lb bombs with GPS guidance. On encrypted comms, the B-2 pilots received a rapid briefing. Target, HQ-19 missile base. Coordinates, 24° on 118° E. Complex with 2 launch pads, radar arrays, command bunker. Priority, neutralize radar and interceptors. Secondary, level the bunker. A-18G Growler jets from the carrier would fly near the Chinese coastline, blasting electronic interference to confuse enemy radars. MQ-25 Stingray drones would loiter far away, transmitting signals mimicking bomber signatures to draw HQ-19 radars. As Chinese radars pursued the decoys, the B-2 Spirits would fly in low and fast, releasing their JDOMs on key structures and MOPs on the hardened bunker. Immediately after impact, both aircraft would climb sharply, banking southwest to exit through a radar gap created by the Growlers. Everything depended on timing and stealth. If the Chinese spotted the bombers too soon, HQ-19 interceptors could launch again. If they waited too long, the bombers might face a barrage of surface-to-air missiles. Off China's southeastern coast, two EA-18G Growlers roared through the sky. Their mission: unleash a wall of electronic interference. Their crews activated the AN/ALQ-218 jamming suite, spraying a waterfall of radio noise across frequencies used by HQ-19 radars. At the same time, three MQ-25 Stingray drones approached from a different angle, broadcasting spoofed signals that mimicked the radar signature of B-2 bombers. Chinese radar operators saw 4 targets instead of 2. They turned their arrays and tried to triangulate. Meanwhile, the real B-2s hugged the sea at just 200 FT above wave tops, their gray wings blending into the twilight. Nightfall 1, check in. Nightfall 1, 10 miles out, altitude 200, proceeding to waypoint. Nightfall 2, in formation, stacked at 220, ready to climb on your mark. Inside the bomber, the pilot glanced at his co-pilot. Both wore oxygen masks, eyes fixed on instrument panels glowing soft green. The terrain-following radar painted a digital map of mountains and valleys ahead. At 8 miles, they ascended to 1500 Fonti, still masked by the jammers. The B-2s split. Nightfall 1 turned slightly north. Nightfall 2 veered south. Each targeted a different quadrant of the HQ-19 site. Bomb bays opened quietly. Air rushed around the fuselage. 4 JDAMs per bomber were armed, their GPS coordinates locked. At precisely 4:38 a.m., both B-2s released their first JDAMs. 4 seconds later, they dropped their second pair. The bombs fell silently at first, then accelerated, screaming toward the Earth. Each weapon adjusted its fins slightly, homing in on pre-programmed coordinates. Below, Chinese soldiers still manned their launch pads, unaware the bombs were seconds away. 4 JDAMs slammed into the HQ-19 radar arrays and support vehicles. The explosions tore through control rooms, communications towers, and missile gantries. Fireballs erupted, debris flying hundreds of feet. Dust and smoke rose into the air. Nightfall 2 dropped its next pair of JDAMs, destroying the secondary radar installation and power generation units. Within 20 seconds, Chinese operators had lost their ability to see the bombers. The next phase was the most critical. Buried deep beneath the HQ-19 site was a hardened bunker containing command and control systems and reserve missiles. This bunker was reinforced concrete, designed to survive most conventional bombs. The only weapon that could penetrate it was the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. At 4:38:45, both B-2s released their MOPs simultaneously. Each bomb weighed over 13 tons and contained 5,300 lb of explosive. As they plunged, their kinetic energy built with tremendous force. They struck the Earth at nearly supersonic speed. The first MOP piece smashed through earth and concrete, burrowing 200 FT underground. It detonated deep beneath the bunker, collapsing the entire structure. The second MOP hit the command center, ripping through multiple floors before exploding. Shock waves traveled through the underground tunnels, rupturing fuel lines, shattering walls, and destroying cables. In less than 90 seconds from the first JDAM release, the entire HQ-19 missile base ceased to exist. Radar domes lay crumpled, launch pads shattered, and the bunker vaporized. Secondary explosions erupted as stored missiles and propellant caught fire. Immediately after releasing their MOPs, the B-2s went full throttle. They climbed sharply, turning southwest. Their exhaust plumes glowed briefly, but the Chinese SAM batteries could not lock onto them in time. Jammers continued to flood the airwaves, buying the stealth bombers a vital 30-second window to escape. At Chinese military command centers, screens went dark. Operators realized their HQ-19 battery had gone offline. It took nearly 2 minutes for ground cameras to show the truth. The entire complex was rubble, smoke rising into dawn light. The missile threat was gone. Back on the USS Ronald Reagan, cheers erupted. "Target neutralized. We have impact confirmation." The pilots of Nightfall 1 and Nightfall 2 radioed, "Mission complete. Exiting the region." Rear Admiral Foster exhaled slowly. He knew the strike had prevented further HQ-19 launches, preserved his carrier group's safety, and sent a clear message. America could strike back with precision even within contested airspace. News of the attack leaked within hours. Videos posted by civilians showed orange flashes on the horizon. Analysts around the world identified the approximate area and confirmed a major explosion. By midday, global media reported that 2 U.S. B-2 bombers had destroyed a Chinese anti-ballistic missile site. China's official channels were silent at first. By evening, a spokesperson admitted the HQ-19 base had been attacked, but insisted it was an isolated incident provoked by foreign aggression. State media accused the U.S. of escalation. The Pentagon held a press briefing. This strike was a limited defensive action, said the Secretary of Defense. It came in response to an unprovoked launch at a U.S. aircraft. It targeted only the facility directly involved in that launch. The United States seeks no conflict, but we will defend our forces. Privately, U.S. officials hoped the message would deter further HQ-19 launches, while also reassuring allies in the region. The strike had far-reaching implications. In recent years, Chinese military planners had fielded HQ-19 interceptors to challenge U.S. air superiority. The HQ-19 is a missile designed to engage ballistic targets, but analysts suspected China could adapt it to target stealth bombers. By striking the missile base, the U.S. Navy not only protected its current mission, but also demonstrated that it could neutralize such threats preemptively. This operation underscored a vital principle. Deterrence depends on credibility. The U.S. showed it had the capability and willingness to respond quickly and proportionally to attacks on its assets. By limiting the target to one HQ-19 base and avoiding broader strikes, Washington also signaled it wanted to prevent a wider war. Military analysts debate whether this strike will dissuade China from future provocations or provoke a new arms race. China may accelerate development of new anti-stealth capabilities. The U.S. might deploy more assets to the region. Meanwhile, other countries watch carefully. Allies draw reassurance that America will defend them. Adversaries consider ways to exploit or counter such rapid responses. Few aircraft evoke as much awe as the B-2 Spirit. Its bat-wing shape and radar-absorbent materials allow it to slip undetected through the most sophisticated air defenses. Each B-2 costs over $2 billion. Only 21 were built, and fewer remain in operational rotation. The aircraft is refueled in mid-air, enabling global reach. Pilots train for years to master its systems. When the HQ-19 base fired at Nightfall 1, it wasn't just a lucky catch. Chinese radar operators may have detected a brief reflection, or the HQ-19 may have fired on a predicted flight path. But the B-2's stealth prevented a successful hit. Ironically, that failure precipitated the destruction of the missile base. China's HQ-19 system is a relatively new anti-ballistic missile. Its role is to intercept intermediate-range missiles and possibly high-altitude aircraft. Each HQ-19 battery consists of mobile launchers, radars, and a command center. The bunker targeted in this strike likely housed the command equipment and stored additional missiles. The MOPs used by the B-2s were explicitly chosen to destroy this hardened structure. This operation didn't involve B-2s alone. The EA-18G Growlers from the carrier group jammed radars. The MQ-25 Stingray drones acted as decoys. A U.S. Navy E-2D Hawkeye monitored airspace. Analysts from U.S. Cyber Command likely fed intelligence to identify the HQ-19's exact location and vulnerabilities. This level of coordination mirrors the multi-domain operations used during the attack on the USS Harry S. Truman by drones and missiles, as described in competitor scripts. The ability to fuse air, sea, and cyber capabilities is what makes modern warfare so complex and so decisive. Imagine the tension in those final seconds before the bombs hit. The B-2 pilots knew they were flying into one of the world's most contested airspaces. Their margin for error was razor thin. One wrong altitude or wrong angle could expose them to HQ-9 or HQ-22 surface-to-air missiles stationed elsewhere. They also knew millions of viewers might see the aftermath. Yet training overcame fear. They flew and dropped their bombs as calmly as if they were at a range. In the command center aboard the Ronald Reagan, young sailors stared at screens as the strike unfolded. Many were in their early 20s. For them, This was the first time witnessing a real combat operation. They listened to radio chatter, felt the ship vibrate as aircraft launched, and then waited for the words, "target neutralized." Relief washed over them when those words came. While bombs were falling, diplomats were scrambling. U.S. officials notified allies and quietly sent messages to Beijing via back-channel communications. They explained the limited nature of the strike. Chinese diplomats responded with their own warnings. The world held its breath. The strike had to be decisive enough to deter future attacks, but controlled enough to avoid a cycle of retaliation. What happened in those 90 seconds on June 5, 2025, was more than a tactical success. It was a demonstration of how modern warfare unfolds at hypersonic speed and with global consequences. A missile was fired, it missed. An airbase was leveled. Deterrence was reinforced. But the real lesson is broader. Today's conflicts span air, sea, cyberspace, and diplomacy. A single miscalculation can ignite a chain reaction. Great powers must balance assertiveness with restraint. For the men and women aboard the B-2 Spirits and the USS Ronald Reagan, this balance is personal. Every decision could mean life or death, war or peace. As viewers and citizens, we need to understand these complexities, not just to marvel at the technology, but to appreciate the stakes. If you found this narrative illuminating, please like and subscribe. Your engagement helps us bring more in-depth stories to a wider audience. And let us know in the comments, should the U.S. continue to respond this forcefully to provocative missile launches? What does this mean for the future of the Pacific? We read every comment and value your insights.